There's a question nobody in your organization will ask out loud. When AI can do most of your job, what exactly are you still needed for? The instinct is to say creativity, emotional intelligence, human connection. These answers feel good because they're impossible to disprove, which is precisely why they get repeated at conferences. The honest answer, the one that actually holds up, is judgment. Specifically, the capacity to decide what is worth doing at all. This tutorial walks through what judgment actually is, why it's structurally irreplaceable, and how to develop it deliberately. To understand why judgment is the protected skill, you need to understand what AI actually replaces. The common assumption is that automation starts at the bottom, repetitive, low-skill tasks, and works its way up slowly. That is not what happened. AI has replaced a thick band of skilled, credential-protected knowledge work, legal research, financial modeling, first drafts of contracts, strategies, reports, and code. Work that required years of training to access. The professionals who assumed expertise protected them were largely right about the difficulty and entirely wrong about the durability. Difficulty and irreplaceability are not the same thing. Here is the core mistake most professionals make. They confuse difficulty with irreplaceability. If something was hard to learn, it feels like it should be hard to automate. That logic made sense in a world where automation meant applying simple rules to simple tasks. It no longer holds. Difficulty is a property of human learning curves, not a property of what machines can or cannot do. A legal argument, a financial model, a technical diagnosis, all difficult to learn, all automatable in their execution phase. The difficulty of the training is irrelevant once you have the right architecture for the task. The key insight here is what AI is actually good at, executing within a predefined problem space. Think of it like this. If someone hands you a completed brief, AI can produce the output faster than you, and often better in the narrow sense of producing something that looks like what was requested. Write a report, summarize research, draft a contract, generate code that fits a spec. Within a given frame, AI optimizes brilliantly. The critical phrase is within a given frame. Someone has to build that frame first. Someone has to decide which problem is worth framing. That step sits outside what AI can do. Let's be specific about what has already been replaced. Legal research, the kind junior associates spent years learning, reading case law, and synthesizing arguments. AI does in minutes. Financial modeling built to a template, faster, fewer errors. First drafts of almost anything, marketing copy, technical documentation, strategy memos, emails, code. These were the skilled middle layer of knowledge work, the work that took credentials to access. If your value proposition was, I know how to do this hard thing quickly, that proposition has been significantly compressed. This is not a future risk. It is the current state. Judgment, as used here, is not a soft skill. It is not wisdom, intuition, or some vague attribute of experienced people. It is a specific capacity, deciding what is worth doing at all. This sounds abstract until you see what it means in practice. It is the moment before analysis begins, when you decide which problem deserves your attention, which metric is actually the right one to track. Whether the question your client is asking is the real question. Whether the project your team is about to start is aimed at something that matters. That decision, that moment of choosing the frame, is judgment. There is a common confusion between judgment and critical thinking, and it is worth being precise. Organizations talk about developing critical thinking as the human hedge against AI. What they usually mean is analytical rigor, evaluating evidence, identifying logical errors, stress testing arguments. That is valuable, but it is not the same thing. Analysis requires a frame. You need to know what you are analyzing and why before you can begin. Judgment is the prior step, deciding which frame to use at all. You can be analytically brilliant and judgment poor simultaneously. Many professionals are. They evaluate problems excellently, but never question whether they were handed the right one. Here is the structural limitation. AI cannot tell you whether a problem is worth solving. It cannot tell you that your company's product roadmap is aimed at a market that does not care. It cannot detect that a policy your team is implementing will destroy morale in ways no dataset captures. It cannot tell you that the business you are about to start is technically sound, but socially mistimed. These situations require reading conditions that are underspecified and consequential, where you have to decide what to weight when you cannot weight everything. That is judgment. AI is structurally excluded from it, not temporarily behind on it. There is a deeper reason AI cannot develop judgment. It has nothing at stake. AI produces confident outputs that are wrong in ways that are hard to detect. but it never suffers the consequences. Judgment, real judgment, is not separable from accountability. The professional who bears the consequences of a wrong call develops a fundamentally different relationship to certainty than one who does not. This is why founders often have sharper judgment than consultants, even when consultants are technically more rigorous. The founder who misjudges the market loses something real. Being wrong costs them something. That pressure shapes cognition over time in ways nothing else replicates. When organizations respond to AI by investing in critical thinking training, they almost always mean something smaller than judgment. They mean, evaluate sources, identify cognitive biases, structure arguments clearly. These are worth teaching. But judgment is earlier and harder. It is not the question, is this analysis correct? It is the question, is this the right analysis to be running? The distinction sounds minor until you recognize that the second question is the one that actually determines outcomes. Being analytically sharp about a poorly framed problem is how intelligent organizations waste years. Judgment is the protection against that failure. Critical thinking, as usually defined, is not. Here is why most professionals never develop judgment. Organizations are structured to prevent it. You inherit your problem definition from a manager, a client brief, a project scope. The frame is handed to you. Your job is to answer the question well, quickly, credibly, in a format that travels upward without friction. This is often efficient. Inherited frames are not always wrong. But a professional who only knows how to work within given frames becomes fragile the moment AI can answer predefined questions competently, which it already can. The frame is exactly where automation stops. It is also exactly where most professionals have never been asked to work. The professional who is hard to automate is the one who questions the frame itself, who asks, why this problem rather than another? Who is willing to say, in a room full of people who have already committed to an approach, we are solving the wrong thing. That observation is not analytical. It does not come from more data or a better model. It comes from developed judgment about what actually matters, shaped by having been wrong about it before in ways that cost something. It is the observation that cannot be delegated to AI. It is the most valuable thing a professional can offer. Judgment develops through 3 specific conditions. The first is skin in the game, bearing the consequences of your own decisions. Think of the difference between a founder and a consultant. The founder who misjudges the market loses something real: money, time, the company itself. The consultant who gives bad advice writes another deck. That asymmetry, experienced repeatedly over years, shapes how you relate to certainty. You become calibrated differently when you cannot escape the aftermath of your calls. This is not about stress or pressure. It is about the feedback loop that only exists when outcomes actually matter to you personally. The second condition is regular exposure to problems that are genuinely underdefined, where the data does not resolve the answer and someone has to decide anyway. Structured environments produce analytical skill. Clean datasets, well-specified assignments, defined deliverables. These develop execution quality. They do not develop the capacity to act well under irreducible ambiguity. Early-stage roles, cross-functional projects, positions that require committing to a call without sufficient information. These develop judgment in ways comfortable assignments do not. If your career has been spent executing clearly scoped work, you may be technically sharp and judgment poor simultaneously without knowing it. The third condition is honest feedback, not in the coaching sense, but structurally. Judgment atrophies when you can rationalize your way out of being wrong. The professionals who develop the sharpest judgment over time tend to maintain some record of their predictions and consult it later, not for punishment, but for calibration. When you look at a past call and say, I was wrong because I systematically underweight X, that is the mechanism through which judgment improves. Without it, experience accumulates without translating into accuracy. You feel more experienced. You are not actually better calibrated. The distinction matters enormously over a career. The failure mode to understand and avoid is rationalization. When a call goes wrong and you explain it away, external factors, bad luck, incomplete information, you bypass the mechanism that would have sharpened your judgment. Good judgment is not about being right more often naturally. It is about having a feedback loop that actually works. Professionals who maintain that loop over years start to look like they have better intuition. What they actually have is a longer record of honest error correction. The result is genuine calibration, a different relationship to uncertainty than most peers who have been explaining away their mistakes instead of learning from them. A concrete example of what good judgment looks like in practice. You are in a meeting. The The team has been working on a deliverable for 3 weeks. Everyone is committed to the current direction. The data, such as it is, supports moving forward. And you have a signal, not a data point, not a fully formed argument yet, that something is wrong. The problem is framed incorrectly. Good judgment is the capacity to act on that signal. To say, out loud, in that room, we are solving the wrong thing. And to be right often enough, over time, that people listen when you say it. The most practical thing you can do to start developing judgment is a decision log. Every significant call you make, who to hire, what to build, which problem to prioritize, whether to take a role, write down your reasoning at the time. Not after the outcome is known. At the time, before you can work backwards from results. Then, 6 to 12 months later, consult it. The goal is not self-criticism. It is calibration, seeing the pattern of where your reasoning was systematically off and why. Most professionals skip this entirely because it requires confronting errors directly. That discomfort is exactly why it works. The second action is deliberate exposure to underdefined problems. Look for the cross-functional project. Volunteer for the role where the brief is unclear. Take the early-stage engagement where nobody can tell you precisely what success looks like. These assignments feel uncomfortable because they require judgment, which means they are the assignments that build it. Comfortable, well-scoped work builds analytical speed and execution quality. It does not build judgment. If your career has been entirely in the execution category, you are technically proficient and judgment underdeveloped. That gap becomes visible as AI absorbs more of the execution layer, and it is absorbing it now. The full article goes deeper on every concept covered here. Why expertise is less protected than it appeared, what AI structurally cannot do and why that will not change, the 3 conditions through which judgment develops, and what to do with this information in practical terms. It is at realsyllabus.com, the platform for the education the professional world does not formally provide. If this tutorial raised questions you have not seen addressed clearly elsewhere, the article is the place to start. Read it, save it, and return to it the next time automation reaches something you assumed was protected.